The alarm buzzed, its shrill tone cutting through the cold morning silence. Marcus Reed groggily opened his eyes, his breath visible in the frozen air. The heater had been broken for months. The chill in the trailer was a constant companion, one that never seemed to leave. With a sigh, he swung his legs off the bed and stood up, the wooden floor creaking beneath him. The day had already begun, and so had the routine. He shuffled across the room to check on his daughter, Lena. She was curled up on the pull-out couch, covered with a thin blanket that barely kept the cold at bay. At just 10 years old, she was already so used to this life, to the struggle. Marcus quietly adjusted the blanket around her, careful not to wake her, before moving to the kitchen. He boiled water on a hot plate, the stove long since out of commission. While the kettle heated, he pulled out the old newspaper he kept stashed in his bag. Job listings. He always circled the mechanic positions, hoping for something, anything that would bring in enough to keep the lights on. Today's paper looked just like yesterday's, filled with promises of work that never seemed to come through. But Marcus had learned to keep trying. Lena's voice broke through his thoughts. "Daddy?" Marcus smiled and turned. "Hey, baby girl, you up already?" She rubbed her eyes and sat up, still half asleep. "I'm cold," she mumbled. Marcus's heart squeezed. "I know. Just a little more time. We'll get some hot cocoa. The special kind." Lena perked up at that, a small smile tugging at her lips. "With cinnamon?" "Yep, just like we always do." He poured the hot water into their mugs, stirring in the cocoa powder, then added a pinch of cinnamon. The small comfort was something they could always share, no matter how little else they had. Once breakfast was over, Marcus bundled Lena up in her coat, and they headed out for her school. The wind bit at their skin, but they walked through the Birchwood Flats trailer park, their breath rising in small clouds. It was a place where no one really had much, but they all held on to each other. The park was filled with old trailers, the roofs sagging and the paint peeling off the walls, much like the people who lived there. At the school gates, Marcus knelt down to hug Lena before sending her off. "Remember what I always say?" Lena nodded, her small voice steady. "Our circumstances don't define us. Our choices do." "That's right. Keep your head up, kiddo." But as she walked away, he saw the stairs. The kids pointing at her shoes, the worn-out sneakers held together with duct tape. He knew she felt it too. They both did. The weight of being different, of always falling short. But Lena held her head high. She was tougher than he was at her age. Later, back at the trailer, Marcus pulled out an old box from under his bed. Inside was a yellowed newspaper clipping with the headline, "Whistleblower exposes faulty brakes in Ketteridge Motors' latest model." It was him, years ago. He'd been right about the brakes. He'd saved lives. But instead of thanks, he'd been blacklisted. The company had turned its back on him, and he'd lost everything: his job, his career, and his dignity. He stared at the photo of his younger self, determination in his eyes, as the memories flooded back. He hadn't been wrong, but being right hadn't paid the bills. It hadn't kept Lena from worrying about how they'd make it through another month. "Dad?" Marcus snapped out of his thoughts to see Lena standing by the table, homework in front of her. The lines of worry were still there, even when she tried to hide them. He smiled at her, trying to keep it together. "Yeah, kid? Can we leave here someday?" The question hit him like a punch to the gut. What was he supposed to say? He wanted to promise her more than this run-down trailer, more than the constant struggle. But the words wouldn't come. He only nodded. "Not always, baby girl. Not always." Lena didn't press the issue. She was used to disappointment by now, used to her father's quiet promises. But that didn't mean it didn't hurt. As Marcus stared at the stack of overdue bills on the fridge, he knew the weight of it was starting to take its toll on both of them. The night dragged on. Lena fell asleep on the couch, her small body curled into a tight ball, and Marcus sat by the window, watching the rain pour down outside. He was tired, more tired than he had been in years, but he still clung to one thing: the hope that tomorrow would bring something better. Whatever came next, Marcus knew he would fight for it. For Lena. He would keep fixing what was broken, no matter the cost. The next day, Marcus woke up to a pounding on his door. He rubbed his eyes, disoriented from the rough sleep, and glanced at the clock. It was barely 8 a.m., too early for any of his neighbors to be coming around unless something was wrong. He swung open the door, and standing on his porch were 6 men in crisp black suits, looking out of place in the worn-down neighborhood. They didn't even flinch at the state of the trailer, or the disheveled look of Marcus himself. One of them stepped forward, a tall man with graying hair, and smiled with practiced politeness. "Mr. Reed?" the man asked, his voice smooth but firm. "That's me," Marcus replied cautiously, his hand instinctively resting on the door frame. "Can I help you?" "We're here on behalf of Ms. Catherine Wexler," the man said, glancing around at the empty lot and the trailers in the distance. "She's asked us to bring you an offer." Marcus raised an eyebrow. The name Wexler hit him like a cold wave. His past collided with the present in that one moment. Catherine Wexler. He hadn't thought about her in years. The CEO of Wexler Automotive, the company that had been part of his downfall. The company he had exposed for safety violations, only to be blacklisted, forgotten, and ignored. "She wants to talk to me?" Marcus asked, his voice edged with suspicion. The man nodded. "She wants to offer you a job, a consulting opportunity." Marcus couldn't stop the flicker of disbelief that passed across his face. "A job? Why would she, after all that, why would she want me?" The man gave a faint smile. "Ms. Wexler believes you have a rare talent, a gift with diagnostics, the kind of work we can't find just anywhere. She's offering you a significant contract, Mr. Reed. Housing, travel, all expenses covered. A chance to work with Wexler Tech, our subsidiary in Atlanta." The mention of Wexler Tech sent a jolt through Marcus. He had heard whispers about their advanced projects, stuff too new, too futuristic. He never thought it would be something he'd be involved in. But at that moment, the practicality of the offer crept into his mind. They weren't offering him just a paycheck. They were offering him a way out, a chance to escape the crushing weight of debt, of constant worry. But could he trust them? A voice broke his reverie. It was Lena, standing behind him, peering through the open door with wide, curious eyes. She had heard the voices outside. Her gaze flicked from the men to her father, a question in her eyes. "Who's that, Daddy?" she asked, her tone innocent but unsure. Marcus hesitated. He didn't want to pull her into this mess, but the damage had already been done. She was already too involved in his life, too aware of their constant struggles. "Just some folks from work," Marcus said, his voice soft but weary. "They want to offer me a job." Lena's brow furrowed. "A job? Is it good?" Marcus gave a faint smile, though the uncertainty lingered. "I think it could be." The man in the suit stepped forward again, offering a brochure. "All we need is a quick meeting, a one-day visit. No strings attached. You'll have all the information you need to make your decision." Marcus hesitated, the brochure feeling heavy in his hand. Something wasn't right about this. The suddenness of the offer. The polished professionalism of these men in such a broken-down place. It felt too easy. But then again, could he afford to turn down a lifeline? Could he afford to keep struggling the way they had been? Lena tugged at his sleeve, her voice a whisper. "Dad, do you think it'll be good? I want us to be okay." The words hit him harder than he expected. She didn't ask for much. She never did. But the way she spoke, the way she believed in him, made Marcus's chest tighten. He glanced back at the men. "Fine," he said, his voice steady despite the knots in his stomach. "I'll come to the meeting." The tall man smiled, a little too broadly. "Excellent. We'll send a car for you. Ms. Wexler is eager to meet with you." As the men walked away, Marcus stood in the doorway, the weight of their words settling on him. A meeting, a job offer. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was bigger than it seemed. But as Lena stood next to him, watching him with those trusting eyes, he couldn't afford to ignore it. He would go, if only for her. Later that afternoon, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the trailer. Marcus swallowed hard as the driver got out and opened the door for him. Lena watched from the porch, her face a mix of excitement and confusion. He gave her a small wave before stepping into the vehicle. As the car pulled away from the trailer park, Marcus couldn't help but wonder if this meeting would be the turning point in their lives, or if it was just the beginning of something far more complicated. The drive to Wexler Tech was a stark contrast to the dusty streets of Birchwood Flats. The SUV's leather seats were cool and plush against Marcus's worn clothes, and the highway stretched out in front of them like a lifeline. The landscape changed from run-down trailers and faded strip malls to sprawling lawns and gleaming glass and steel buildings. Marcus sat silently, his hands resting on his lap, the invitation still burning a hole in his jacket pocket. The car took a sharp turn into a high-tech campus, complete with towering glass structures and manicured lawns. There were sleek cars parked along the entrance and security guards who nodded as the SUV passed by. Everything was pristine, clean, polished. Everything Marcus wasn't. As they pulled up to a sleek building, the driver stopped, and Marcus stepped out. The doors to the building slid open automatically, and he was greeted by a tall woman with short, perfectly styled hair. Her sharp features and confident stride made her seem like she belonged here, as if she had been born into this world of money and power. "Mr. Reed," she said, extending a hand, "I'm Catherine Wexler. It's a pleasure to meet you in person." Marcus shook her hand, his own feeling like it was made of rough leather compared to her smooth, manicured touch. "Likewise," he replied, his voice steady but guarded. Catherine smiled, her eyes scanning him with polite interest, but there was something in her gaze, something calculating, that made him uncomfortable. "Come, please. We have a lot to discuss." The elevator ride was quiet, the soft hum of the machinery the only sound between them. Catherine stood close, but didn't speak, leaving Marcus to wonder what this was all about. Why was she really asking for him? After everything, after his whistleblowing, after the legal battles that had cost him everything, why would she want to meet with him now? When they reached the top floor, the doors opened to a sleek, modern conference room. Glass walls framed a panoramic view of the city skyline, and the entire space felt sterile, cold even. Catherine gestured for him to sit at the long glass table, where a few other people were already gathered. 3 men in suits, all looking at him with various expressions of interest. "I trust you had a pleasant ride?" Catherine asked, sitting down across from him. "It was fine," Marcus replied, trying to keep his discomfort in check. "Good," she said, leaning forward. "Mr. Reed, I'll get straight to the point. We've been following your work for some time. Your skills as a diagnostician are—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Impressive. We've had engineers from top universities attempt to troubleshoot and fix the systems you've worked with, but they haven't had your insight." Marcus felt a flicker of pride despite himself. "I've always had a knack for seeing patterns. Machines talk to me. Catherine smiled, but it was tight, controlled. Exactly. And that's why I think you could be a valuable asset to Wexler Tech. Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Marcus's mind raced. Wexler Tech. She wasn't just offering him some menial job. This was something bigger. She was offering him a chance to be part of something important, something that could change everything. "What exactly do you want from me?" Marcus asked, not sure if he was ready to hear the answer. "We're working on a cutting-edge project," Catherine said, sliding a sleek tablet across the table. On the screen was an image of a complex engine design. It looked nothing like anything he had ever seen. The components were advanced, futuristic, far beyond the work he had done before. "This is the prototype for a new kind of vehicle. It's not just about transportation, Mr. Reed. This is a platform for the future. Autonomous, self-sustaining. A game changer." Marcus stared at the screen, his eyes narrowing. "It's a car." "Not just a car," Catherine corrected smoothly. "It's much more than that. This technology could be used for everything. Urban mobility, defense, even energy production. The possibilities are endless." Marcus's chest tightened. The more she spoke, the more he felt something was off. He had always been about the mechanics, fixing what was broken, finding the simple solutions. This question mark. This felt too complicated, too ambitious. "And you want me to help you fix it?" he asked. "Not fix," Catherine said. "We need your insight, your unique ability to diagnose what others can't. We're stuck, and we need someone who can see the issues before they become problems. You're the man for that." Marcus hesitated. He had no desire to get involved with anything military or defensive. He had never wanted to be a part of something that could be weaponized. But this was a chance to escape. Escape the trailer. Escape the constant fear that he wouldn't be able to provide for Lena. "Why me?" he asked again, his voice hoarse. "Why now?" Catherine's eyes softened just slightly, as though she could sense the conflict within him. "Because, Mr. Reed, you're the only one who can see what's wrong. The others are too focused on the surface. You dig deeper." The words sank in. Marcus had always been someone who found solutions in the details, in the small things others missed. But this was different. This was something bigger than he had ever imagined. "We need you, Mr. Reed," Catherine said, leaning forward. "And if you help us, we'll make sure you and your daughter have a future. A real future." Marcus looked at the screen again, his mind racing. He knew the stakes had just changed. He could feel it deep in his bones. "I'll think about it," he said, standing up slowly. "Of course," Catherine replied, standing with him. "Take your time, but don't take too long." As he walked out of the room, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he had just walked into something much bigger than himself. And no matter how hard he tried, he knew he couldn't walk away from it now. The car ride back to the trailer felt like an eternity. The sleek black SUV cut through the streets of the city, but Marcus's mind was 1,000 miles away. He sat in the back, staring out the window at the sprawling metropolis, his thoughts consumed by the meeting at Wexler Tech. He couldn't shake the image of the engine design Catherine had shown him, the complexity, the potential. He glanced down at the folder she had handed him before he left. It was filled with pages of detailed schematics and projections, everything he needed to understand the project. But the more he looked at it, the more the knot in his stomach tightened. This wasn't just an engine. This was a whole new world of technology, and it was bigger than anything he had ever imagined. More than just cars, it could be a weapon, a tool of control. As the SUV turned onto the familiar dirt road leading back to the trailer park, Marcus felt a wave of dread wash over him. This place, his life, his struggle to make ends meet, suddenly felt miles away from the polished world of Wexler Tech. He didn't belong there. He had never belonged in that world. And yet, he was being pulled in like a moth to a flame. The SUV stopped in front of the trailer. The driver glanced at him through the rearview mirror, his face expressionless. "We'll be in touch, Mr. Reed. If you decide to accept the offer, you know where to find us." Marcus stepped out of the car, his feet sinking into the gravel as he walked toward the trailer. The door was slightly ajar, and he pushed it open, his heart heavy with the weight of the decision he was about to make. Inside, Lena was sitting at the small kitchen table, her homework spread out in front of her. She looked up when she heard the door open, a smile spreading across her face as she saw him. "Hey, Daddy!" she called, her voice light, carefree. "How was the meeting?" Marcus stood in the doorway for a moment, watching his daughter. Her eyes sparkled with hope, and for a second, he couldn't help but wonder if this was the moment that would change everything. For her, for him, for both of them. He sat down beside her at the table, his hand resting on her shoulder. "It was good, baby girl," he said, trying to sound reassuring, though the words felt hollow. "But there's a lot to think about." Lena's brow furrowed. "What do you mean? They're going to help us, right?" Marcus hesitated, his fingers tapping against the edge of the table. "It's not that simple, Lena. They want me to help them with something big, something complicated." Lena looked up at him, her eyes wide with curiosity. "What kind of thing?" Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Something that could change everything. But it's not just about fixing engines anymore. They're building something powerful. I don't know if I want to be a part of that." The silence between them stretched on for a moment. Lena was quiet, taking in his words, her young mind processing the weight of what he had said. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but clear. "Daddy," she said, looking at him with a maturity that surprised him, "I just want you to be happy. You always fix things, right? Why can't you fix this too?" Marcus's chest tightened. She didn't understand what he was really saying. The choice before him wasn't just about fixing something. It was about crossing a line. If he took this job, he would be giving up something. His values, his integrity, the life he had fought so hard to build. But Lena's words cut through the fog of doubt swirling in his mind. "You always fix things." She believed in him. She always had. She trusted him to make the right choice. He looked at her, his heart aching. "I'll fix it, baby girl. I promise." Lena smiled, leaning into him as he wrapped an arm around her. She didn't need to know all the details. She didn't need to understand the complexity of what he was facing. All she needed was for him to be strong, for him to make the right decision. But as Marcus sat there, holding his daughter close, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling in the pit of his stomach. The offer was tempting, but it wasn't just the future he had to think about. It was the past. His past with Wexler Automotive, the scandal, the betrayal. He had walked away from all of that once before. But now, they were offering him a way back in, a way to make things right. The question was, at what cost? The next morning, Marcus woke to the sound of Lena humming softly in the kitchen, the smell of pancakes filling the air. It was a simple morning, just like any other, yet everything felt different. The invitation from Wexler Tech was still in his jacket pocket, the weight of it more present than ever. He had barely slept, his mind racing through every possible outcome, every consequence of the decision that was now in his hands. "Morning, Daddy." Lena's voice broke through his thoughts as she set a plate of pancakes in front of him. Her smile was bright, hopeful. She didn't know how much this decision was tearing him apart. She didn't know that the world he was considering stepping into was a far cry from the one he had promised her, one of safety, of certainty. He glanced at her, his heart heavy with the responsibility he carried. "Morning, baby girl," he said softly, forcing a smile. "You ready for school?" Lena nodded, her fork clinking against the plate. "Yeah, I've got a science project due today. Mr. Stevens is going to be so impressed." She beamed with excitement. Marcus smiled, but his thoughts drifted again. Wexler Tech. They were waiting for him to make a decision. They had promised him a future where his daughter could go to school without worrying about the lights going out or where the next meal would come from. But what kind of future would it be if it came at the cost of his soul? After breakfast, Marcus stood in the living room, staring out the window. He could see the dilapidated trailers of Birchwood Flats, the same worn-out fences and cracked pavement. His whole life had been spent trying to make a living here, patching things together, fixing what was broken. But that wasn't enough anymore. Not for Lena. Not for him. The knock at the door broke his reverie. He turned to find Catherine Wexler standing there, a cool, controlled expression on her face. Behind her was the sleek black SUV, the same one from the day before. "Mr. Reed," Catherine greeted, her tone smooth and businesslike. "I thought we could talk. We're on a tight schedule, and we need your decision. I know this isn't easy, but we're offering you an opportunity that can change everything." Marcus looked at her, his jaw tightening. He couldn't do this anymore. The waiting, the uncertainty. He had to decide, and he had to do it now. "I've thought about it," he said, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "And I've made my decision." Catherine's eyes narrowed slightly, her lips curling into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm glad to hear that. So, what will it be?" For a long moment, Marcus stood there, staring at her, weighing the choice that had been tormenting him for days. He could see the offer for what it was, an easy way out, a chance to escape the suffocating grip of poverty, the constant struggle. But at what cost? He thought about Lena's bright smile, her unwavering belief in him. She wanted him to fix things. She wanted him to fix their future. But was this the right way? With a deep breath, Marcus made his choice. "I'm not taking the job," he said, his voice firm. Catherine's smile faltered, just for a moment. "I see," she said, her tone growing colder. "Well, Mr. Reed, I can't say I'm surprised, but I want you to understand, this wasn't just about you. This was about something much bigger than both of us." Marcus shook his head, his heart still heavy. "It's always about something bigger, isn't it? But it's not the right way. Not for me, not for my daughter." Catherine's eyes flashed with something akin to frustration, but she quickly masked it with a neutral expression. "Very well, but don't think you've seen the last of us." She turned on her heel, her footsteps echoing in the quiet of the trailer. As the door closed behind her, Marcus exhaled deeply, feeling the weight lift off his shoulders. The decision had been made. It wasn't easy, and it didn't come with guarantees. But it was his choice. And that was what mattered. Lena was standing by the table, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Dad? What happened?" Marcus walked over to her and knelt down, cupping her face in his hands. "I turned it down, Lena. The job. We're going to keep things the way they are." She blinked, her brow furrowing. "But why?" Marcus smiled, his hand resting on her shoulder. "Because this is what matters. United States. This life. We'll fix things, just like we always have. But we'll do it our way. Together." Lena's face lit up with a smile. "I'm glad, Daddy," she said softly, throwing her arms around him. "I know you can fix anything." And as Marcus held her, he realized that it wasn't about fixing engines or solving problems that others couldn't see. It was about fixing the things that truly mattered: his family, his integrity, and his future. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Because sometimes, the hardest thing to fix was yourself. But with Lena by his side, Marcus knew he could face anything.